Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Act 2003 Subcommittee today, the 1st of August. The agenda starts with declarations of pecuniary, non-pecuniary and prejudicial interest. Members to declare any interest in items on the agenda and the nature of such interest. For that, we have no interest, thank you. To approve as a correct record the minutes of the subcommittee held on the 13th of July 2025. We approve them? Yes. Okay, approved. Down to the business end of the agenda. Item 3 is a variation application made under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003, Great Driffield AFC, Cemetery Lane, Driffield. Report of the Executive Director of Communities and Environment, pages 5 to 51. 34 to 51 for members only. And I make a statement here about all this stuff. Yes, okay. So, if I can find it, just put it down somewhere. That one there. Okay, yeah. Oh, yes, it is. Thank you. All right. These proceedings are being recorded, and in the event of an appeal to the Magistrates' Court, a transcript will be provided to the court. Please bear in mind that whilst this is not a court of law, all parties will be given a fair hearing. All parties have had a copy of the procedure which will be adhered to. Please would all parties state their name and why they are present for the purpose of this recording. Now I would start by saying I'm Councillor John Dennis. I'm the chairman of the committee this afternoon.
I'm Councillor John Burville and I'm Councillor John Burville and I'm a member of the subcommittee.
Good afternoon, I'm Councillor Barbara Jeffries and I'm a member of this committee.
Emma Appleton, Litigation and Regulatory Services Manager. I'm legal advisor to the committee today.
Good afternoon, Louise Wilson. I'm the Health, Safety and Licensing Service Manager and I'm representing the Licensing Authority today.
Good afternoon, I'm Bernard Selby, a resident, 67 Selfield Close, Driffield.
Good afternoon, I'm Sandra Wheeler, Bernard's wife, and we're representing 2 or 3 of the neighbours today. Unfortunately, John Stanier got taken away in an emergency ambulance just pretty much before we came, so he can't be here today. So if I can represent him, that would be helpful.
Afternoon, Paul Birkinshaw. I'm the Vice Chairman and Secretary of Great Driffield Football Club, and we're obviously the applicant.
John Wiley, Committee Manager to the committee.
Thank you for that. Onto the agenda. Okay. Yes, I can confirm that the members have read all the documents provided by the parties. Further documents will not be accepted unless all parties agree. Are there any additional documents? Thank you. Do the parties wish to call witnesses? Thank you. Do the parties wish to ask questions of each other? Say yes, it's all right. Yeah, okay. Yeah. The time limits are opening statements 3 minutes, evidence from any witness 2 minutes each, questions of any other party or witness 3 minutes, and summing up 2 minutes. And I have to say that we are quite flexible with this timing. 3 minutes isn't very much. Are all the parties content with the time limits? Yeah, well, we don't take any notice of it anyway, so don't worry about it. I now call upon the licensing officer for any updates in relation to the application under consideration.
Thank you, Chair. Only to make mention of the fact that photographs and locality maps have been provided today for members' information. That will help them throughout the duration of the committee. When items are referred to, they will have an understanding of where they're located. Are you happy for me to go on and outline the application for you, Chair?
Yes, continue. Yeah.
Thank you. So on the 12th of June 2025, an application was made by Linda Lard in relation to the Great Driffield AFC. This was for a variation under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003. in respect of the premise licence already granted to Great Driffield AFC, which is located on Cemetery Lane in Driffield. The application is seeking to extend the hours of alcohol, indoor sporting events, live and recorded music, as well as adding additional licensing conditions. The hours applied for are the sale of alcohol will be Monday to Thursday from 12 noon until 22:30. On Friday and Saturdays, there is no proposed change to the existing hours, which are 12 noon until 23:30. And on Sundays, they're applying from 12 noon until 21:30. All of these will be for on sales only. For indoor sporting events, the application seeks permissions from Monday to Thursday from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. On Fridays and Saturdays, again, no change to the existing licence, which was 8 a.m. until midnight. And they are applying for on Sundays from 8 a.m. until 2200 hours. For live and recorded music, they've also asked for some further permissions. So live music will be Monday to Thursday from 12 noon until 2300 hours. On Fridays and Saturdays, they're seeking no change to the existing licence, which gives from 12 noon until midnight. And on Sunday, they are seeking from 12 noon until 2200 hours. And they've asked for live music to be indoors only. For recorded music, it's Monday to Thursday from 8 a.m. until 2300 hours. On Fridays and Saturdays, again, no change to the existing permissions, which are currently set at 8 a.m. until midnight. And on Sundays from 8 a.m. until 2200 hours, again for indoors only. Under the terms of the Deregulation Act 2015 and the Live Music Act of 2012, when a premises licence authorises the sale of alcohol, live music and recorded music, whether amplified or unamplified, becomes deregulated for audiences under 500 people between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. each day. The same deregulation applies for indoor sporting events for an audience of less than 1,000 between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. each day. So should any extension to the alcohol hours be granted, as applied for today, then the regulated entertainment as set out in the application will only be subject to regulation Monday through Thursday from 2200 hours until 2300 hours, 22:30 hours until 2300 hours, and on Sundays from 21:30 hours until 2200 hours, because during this period of time, the alcohol licence will not have effect. The applicant has also offered conditions as part of this application, and these are shown at pages 2 to 3 of members' report. You may wish to consider whether the conditions put forward by the applicant are enforceable as they're written, whether they are statements or duplications of existing legislation, and further advice can be given to members today should you require it. The licensing authority is satisfied that the application has been advertised in accordance with the requirements of the Act by means of a public notice on the premises, in the local newspaper and on the Council's website. And during that 28-day representation period, 6 relevant representations were received against the application, and all those representations were received from relevant persons who live in the locality of the premises. No representations have been received from any responsible authority. So if when representation is received and it has not been withdrawn, then the matter must be determined today by the subcommittee, who have the following options available to them as shown at section 5.1 of the report, which are: you can modify the conditions of the licence, or you can reject whole or part of the variation application that has been made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The agenda now goes to the applicant. Your opening statement and witnesses, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. The application to revise, as has been mentioned, is, I suppose, fairly wide ranging in terms of the times, etc. And I think that's to try not provide any restrictions to carry out what we wish to do. I think the small clubhouse was opened in March 2025. And there was a planning condition which limited the times in which it could be used, and the licensing hours, I think, were alongside that. A recent amendment has been made to the planning condition which allows wider use of the clubhouse and the hours, but obviously this is around the licensing application. We are, of course, a football club, a sports club, and not a pub, and that's something which we certainly recognise. The primary aim of the application, I think it helps clarify, is 2 reasons. One is to enable midweek football matches, to utilise the clubhouse. So, for example, there was a friendly match last night which finished at 8:15, and then there's a rush as to a quick shower if you would like a quick drink. And so it's for that purpose. Those are only in the summer months, of course, and those are on minimal occasion towards the end of the season and the start of the season. The other purpose is we are being used, and we're happy to facilitate other community groups. So the local Driffield Running Club uses it on a Tuesday night. The Referees Association has meetings there, and it's used by some supporters associations, and that's particularly relevant with the loss of the Bell Hotel, which provided meeting facilities for a number of these groups. And again, they're restricted by the times in which they may meet and the times in which they need to conclude those events. Since opening in March, we've had 3, I think, late night events, which are referenced in the representations that have been made in connection with the application. One of those was a presentation night that went on a little later than I had anticipated. One was a quiz night and one was a race night, and those were all on the weekend within the licensable hours. I think it's worth noting we have nothing else specifically planned of that nature. We don't have any other nights planned. And anything which we do have planned, if we do wish to do, for example, a race night in the future to raise funds, then that would be on a weekend. But it's been useful, and we have no plans for live music. And so that may be an issue the committee should consider in terms of making some concession around it. I think, again, it goes back, we put that in to try not restrict our use, but I appreciate that then perhaps presents a different interpretation of the intention than what we actually seek to do. So we have no plans for that. We apologise for the recent disturbances and how that's impacted local residents, and we've learned from that. So we've reflected on that and the representations. Recently, we were going to put a couple of benches down the side of the clubhouse. We've rejected that idea now because we feel it's too close to residential properties. We were approached recently to do a birthday party on a weekend. We've turned down that because we recognise that the venue is not suitable for that kind of event and the impact it has on neighbouring properties. So our intentions perhaps and how those sit alongside the application, there's a confusion there, but certainly our point there, we do seek to be a conscientious neighbour. We do seek to learn. I think a point which we haven't had a good conversation actually with the representatives here today about some of the issues, and recognise that we need to make sure that dialogue continues. The representations do make reference to other unsociable activities such as motorbikes. I think it's worth noting that those are not all attributable to the football club. Certainly I'm not aware of any incidents involving motorcycles. That's a lane which serves the cemetery and which serves allotments and is an open lane as well. So that needs to be borne in mind, that those unsocial events are not related to the licensing of the football club. We have carried out a recent expansion of the car park. Hopefully that will address some of the parking issues. That was to largely as well to deal with traveller incursions which had taken place on the car park there. So we are seeking to improve the facilities and make it and manage the area much better. But I would just refer, our weekends, generally, I think on a Saturday, we're shutting around 7 p.m. once the football's finished and once people have then left. On a Sunday, we have junior matches in the morning. Sometimes we have a senior match, but generally the clubhouse is closed by 2, 3, 4 o'clock. And that's its primary purpose, to serve the football. The midweek, we're unable to facilitate midweek matches. The East Riding FA wish to use the facility as an excellent one for some of its cups and matches. We're not able to facilitate that. Very much focused around being a sports club, being a place which can be used by the community during the week, in addition to the licensing hours on the weekend. And that's the primary purpose for the extension, to not restrict, as it does currently, the use for midweek matches, the use for the Driffield Striders, the use by people wanting to use it as a meeting facility where they're restricted to go by 8 o'clock. Happy to take any questions. And I do appreciate how the application may be interpreted, but that is our very clear example. We've had limited events, as I reference, and we have no others planned apart from serving the football at this time. And I hope that gives the subcommittee a feel for the type of facility which we are looking to operate there, and our respect for our neighbours in the residential properties and how we need to try and mitigate the impact on them.
Okay, thank you very much for explaining all that. We have a section now for questions by relevant persons, if you have any particular questions.
Yeah, could I just ask, and we're quite supportive of football and the intentions. It's just for us as neighbours, we don't see how there's any, if the licence is so wide ranging as it is, as it's stated, then it allows other intentions to come into play in the future. And I think that's our concern. If the licence was a little less wide ranging, you know, especially during the week, because we've got a lot of working families living locally, elderly. I mean, everybody needs their sleep, but you know, it is, for us, it was quite a shock when we read it because it is so wide ranging. And I think that is really, I don't know how do we just reduce the timings in the license application? Is that how we achieve that? Because saying it's intention, but actually agreeing to certain times and activities, those two don't really match. There's no control over that, is there? That's perhaps a question for you, Louise. I don't know.
Yes, okay.
Sorry. I understand that it's been used by other people as well, but why is there a need for a license to have the runners use it as a meeting place, etc.? Why do they need a drinks license? If you're having a meeting, we're not drinking alcohol now, are we?
I'm thinking Louise would answer that one.
I can answer the question in relation to the one posed by the first question in relation to amending the licence. As soon as the licence enters the committee process today, the determination of the outcome of that is for the elected members to decide. So based on the application and the information they've been provided and the evidence they hear today, they will make a decision as to what they think is necessary and appropriate to promote the licensing objectives moving forward. Obviously, there is within the scope of that, they have a wide range. So that will include reduction in hours, reduction in activities, additional of conditions. It could include no action. It depends on what members at the end of today's hearing feel is necessary in order to promote those objectives. The second question posed by yourself, I think the applicant will need to answer that one.
Thank you. Yes, would like to comment.
Yeah, happy Chairman. I mean, obviously the use by the likes of the Driffield Striders and other meetings and associations, I'm not actually aware whether they do drink any alcohol, and it may be the case that they don't, but I think it's having that option and flexibility that if they wish to do so, then they may. I think obviously as part of the social aspect around sport, then coming together afterwards is a great thing to do, and the ability for some to have a drink if they so wish, but we're talking extremely negligible impact there. We had a committee club meeting on Monday evening, attended by all the managers, which hold about every quarter, and some of their managers had Cokes and some had a bottle of lager, and it's their choice, and it's just about having that flexibility. And I think for the likes of the beyond the hours that exist currently and not being restricted by them, and in essence clock watching around how quickly they need to be finished and done, really. But these are social gatherings after sporting events, which I think is an important part of community cohesion and building those relations, rather than simply attending the sporting event and then having to leave the premise immediately. Hopefully that helps answer the question, but they may all drink soft drinks as avid runners.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Any further questions? Any question from the members, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask your comments about the times and whether the process would be improved by amending it? So when I look at the time schedule that we've been given, there's no changes for Friday and Saturday. There's 2-hour difference added on Monday to Thursday and 1 hour for Sunday. So as it presently stands, how do you feel about the times in terms of what you're talking about needing to sleep and have that time without noise?
I think as neighbours, we would prefer that the times aren't extended, especially during the weekday. That's the, you know, speaking to people who live around us, that's their prime concern because they're working, have to be up early in the morning, etc. And there's a general concern, you know, where the location is. It's Cemetery Lane runs alongside at the back of a number of houses and the little closes that we live in. And, you know, cars going backwards and forwards, people walking, it naturally generates noise. And I suppose potentially alcohol fueled noise is usually a bit louder than just having a glass of water or a cup of tea. So I think any extension to those hours, we would prefer not to see. Because it was coupled with live music, either amplified or non-amplified, that was, you know, the thing that really got people very concerned, because thinking about, you know, 11 o'clock at night on a weekday particularly, and having music, because however you try, sound does travel, especially in that particular area down little lanes, etc. So that coupled with the hours is a big concern. We live in a peaceful and quiet neighbourhood at the moment. We chose to live there, not in a town. And all of a sudden, you know, potentially our tranquility or general tranquility is disrupted. We're used to the football noise, etc. That's part of, you know, living, but actually late at night, it's not so acceptable.
I understand that live music is now off the equation.
Could I just, sorry,
We would be happy for live music to be taken out of the application to mitigate residents' concerns around it. And I think our reflections, as I've said, on the recent events in which a microphone was used, a race night and a quiz night, and unfortunately it was summer, and therefore windows and doors were open. And so we learned from that and recognise that such events better take place in winter. And we also learn from the events and take a perspective that live music equally would not be appropriate in the proximity to the residents. So we'd be happy if that would mitigate the concerns for that element to be removed.
Question of the applicant. Roughly, what is the capacity of the clubhouse?
Quite a small clubhouse, but the maximum capacity is 100 people.
About 100, so that's the maximum you would allow in.
I think that's the maximum permitted either under the licence or the planning element. I'm not sure exactly which one, but certainly 100 is the maximum capacity.
Okay, thank you. And one other question I have in your submission, you've put about the current limitations, and if you put that they've seriously impacted our use of the premises, which says seriously. Would you perhaps expand on that, please?
So in terms of the impact, it's impacted on our ability to have midweek football matches at the end of the season, and we started them at the beginning of the season, so that's influencing the kickoff time. And likewise, last night the game finished at 8:15, so it was a quick in change and insert impacts in that. And we've, as I say, we've also, due to the excellent facility that now exists, we've been approached by the East Riding FA, for example, to facilitate matches, and we've had to refuse them because we can't facilitate the hospitality which they would like to see as part of them key fixtures. I think it's worth noting that these are all relevant to the months probably of May, the end of the April, May end of season, and July, August pre-season. Once we're into the winter months, there'll be no football activity midweek on an evening and no events during the week in the evening also, apart from the likes of Driffield Striders and any meetings that associations may wish to use the facility for, but that will obviously be indoor and quiet.
Any further questions?
You mentioned about the fact you've extended the car park, and yet one of the complaints that we've been reading is the traffic flow and the numbers of cars that are going to increase. So if some of those cars seem to be parking along Cemetery Lane and therefore endangering pedestrians, as what we read in the reports, what are you doing about that? If you've extended the car park, has that completed the extension, or are you thinking of extending it even more so that it can take the overflow of cars that are parking along Cemetery Lane?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that the clubhouse has a negligible impact on the number of cars that are visiting the site. So junior football has taken place there on a Sunday morning for many years, and simply because there's a clubhouse that opens at 12 o'clock will not increase the traffic that comes for the junior football matches, and likewise football has taken place on a Saturday. So there is no specific increase. I think what we've done is there was a fairly small car park, as I said, which was not secure. And we suffered from, I think, 3 traveller incursions, which fortunately were short-lived. But we were recognised that was an ongoing concern because sometimes it meant we had to cancel our matches because the travellers had taken the car park. So we took the opportunity and we had a grassed area, which was not what people would park on a Sunday because there was simply insufficient parking. And so part of our project, we have we've covered that grassed area to be a proper secure car park. At the moment, that will open in the next few weeks. Simply just waiting for the grass. It's a grass grid system. So again, I think in terms of trying to be conscientious, we opted against concreting it because we thought grass would look better for the residential areas. So we've done grass grid. That provides around 80 spaces. And I think as well, in terms of trying to be a conscientious neighbour and recognising the other elements up there, we lease the land from the council. We secured a new 30-year lease last year, and we opted to gift back part of the car park to ensure that cemetery users could continue to visit the cemetery without being impacted by the new football car park. And so we've gifted an element of that back. But the parking, I don't believe the traffic will change. It's been there all the time. I think what we've done is provide a better facility to manage that car park at significant cost, I would add as well, to try provide a better facility and certainly control the flow of traffic up Cemetery Lane. Again, I think it's worth noting there is a fairly large allotments there. There are visitors to the cemetery. Clearly, football on a Saturday and a Sunday does have an impact, and members may be aware, certainly the local ward members will be aware of the works that have been done to that road in light of the housing development that's been built and the concerns that have arisen around Cemetery Lane and its effective use. And I believe that that's a position that the council is addressing to try find a better solution to facilitate the housing development, which is adjacent to the football club. And therefore, you just have a whole different flow of traffic to Cemetery Lane and down Cemetery Lane. And what they have done, with the best of intention, in our view, and in many views, just doesn't work. And so that is being revisited. But in conclusion, I don't believe that the clubhouse has any additional traffic impact beyond the same people are still playing there that were playing there for many years.
Could I just mention something like
Yes, please do.
that? Sorry, you first, yeah.
Sorry, just to say, no, if there's a bigger car park now, though, facility, isn't there, which is a good thing, I think. But the clubhouse is going to be used more extensively. That was one of the objectives of it, was it not, to have different matches played there that they couldn't accommodate before. So there will be an increase. And I think, although this isn't just about the clubhouse, that lane is hazardous. It always has been. But with any increases, and there's no traffic calming measures or anything along it, that is a big concern with having the school, the play parks, as Paul said, the way they built the road in a funny hooked way. Nothing that we can control, but it does add to the dangers for children, dog walkers, all the pedestrians that walk along there because there's no footpath. And it's a shortcut to the cemetery, the allotments, the school pickup drop-off times. So although that isn't solely, the football club, it's an extra. I think there will be extra cars and people. That's part of the objective of having improved the clubhouse, isn't it? So I don't think to say no impact is right. I realise and accept that the impact isn't totally down to the football club, but it is not helpful on an already hazardous area. And I'm not aware of anything that's being done to look at adding traffic calming measures or even doing an assessment of speeds along there.
If I can add, it was mentioned during that discussion just then that the East Riding were leasing some land. We three have no involvement in that. It's done by the officers of the local authority. So I thought I'd better just clarify that. Yes. please.
Sorry, could I just add before to make an addition to what Sandra's just said? And it's the loading and unloading thing. We were nearly knocked down by a transit the other day, and that is an access for school and playgrounds. So if we're having to dodge out of the way of a transit van going up at, I wouldn't like to guess what speed, on a road that has no footpath, one passing place, and quite literally I can almost touch the sides. That is what Cemetery Lane is like.
I can sympathise because I live down a lane that sounds just like that. Any further questions?
Well, and sorry, sorry, the loading and unloading arrangements are between 9 AM and 6 PM. Schools, playgrounds. It's when the kids are there.
When kids are there, but not moving around much, are they?
They are using that lane for access to the school and to the
Not at
playgrounds.
9 o'clock, but later in the afternoon, I guess they are. Yes.
Well, they could be unloading at 6 PM according to this.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's after school time.
Just to answer a couple of points, when I refer to the additional matches, which we would be pleased to host on behalf of the East Riding, if they chose to use as a facility, I imagine that would be 2, 3 a year. So yes, that would generate traffic that visits to their matches. But they're very minimal in that respect. I think the car park, cars again were parking, they were simply parking on grass and down the side of Cemetery Lane as you go further past the football
Do
pitches.
you anticipate that's going to increase or stay roughly the same?
Stay the same.
Okay.
The football matches have always been played. I think the purpose of the clubhouse is to provide a facility whereby people, when they've finished playing the football, can then socialise after a match. Often, obviously, in football matches, generally people will go to a pub in the local village or town. We wish to provide a facility where that can be catered for on the site, and that's obviously exists. So it's simply a different means of providing that and having a car park, which, we've taken the opportunity to provide a car park rather than people parking on the grass, parking down the lane, bring some structure to the parking in that area around the clubhouse. And we feel there'll be a significant improvement in that secure. I think in terms of deliveries, I take the point, and I think you make that. I think we have the bins are emptied, so we have commercial waste bins that are emptied by the council, and we have a delivery by the supplier of drinks, food, and beverages. And that's once a week, I think.
1 week. Yeah. Okay.
So, but those are just the general highways operations.
Okay. Any further questions? Yes.
May I ask is this, we've had some photographs here, this lane here?
So that's looking back down. So if you go down the road there, you're exiting towards your house. So you can see the bit on the right is the bit that we've gifted back to the council. The new car park is just beyond the building on the right.
This is just
That's the allotment lane. That's the allotments entrance that you see on there.
okay. Same with that one.
That's the new car park. That's the existing concrete car park. And
Right.
as you see, that didn't have any gates there. So we've now put them gates in to secure that.
Ah,
Obviously to deal with traveller incursions and other issues. To the left of that, the grassed area, which existed,
uh-huh.
has been dug up, rubber grid
Yep.
put down
Yep.
with grass going through it. So visually, it's flatter, but still looks like the grass that existed previously.
And that's the continuation.
That's from the other side. Again, that looks like the allotments entrance. That's the bit we've gifted back to the council for cemetery users to ensure that they can continue to use it whilst our car park is locked. And again, as an example, we've contacted the funeral directors, and if there is a funeral taking place, then we'll permit clearly access to our car park and make sure that's open and available to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Could I just, sorry, on the the deliveries, is that possible then to avoid school times? You know, that school, I don't know, from 3-ish to 4 o'clock. I think that would be helpful. Just then there's not some big vehicle while the kids are
There's an
wheeling
after
about
school
trying
as
to get to the park, you know. Just something to consider.
there is a preschool and after school as well, though. So it is a longer period down Cemetery Lane. And that is an entrance to the school and the preschool after school.
Any comments on that?
Again, Chairman, we're happy to ask the council's commercial waste collection to avoid school hours, and we'd be happy to, our one supplier, it's just the one supplier, we'd be happy to ask them to avoid. And I think that points a little to what I said, you know, I am keen, we've taken on different roles. Unfortunately, our chairman died a couple of weeks ago, to engage with local residents. So I'm happy, you know, it's something I think we recognise as well that we would benefit from. And we're happy, we want to be a conscientious neighbour. We want to, we don't wish to, we're all volunteers. None of us are making any money. We're doing this for the Driffield community, the football and the wider community. We're not doing it to make money, and neither do we want to upset and disturb anybody unnecessarily. And so we will look at opening up that dialogue, and certainly I'll be writing to the households in the close to at least provide my contact details in terms of my personal email and mobile number. I think it's that type of issue that then we can have an ongoing dialogue on. But we do see, you know, it's important, and we recognise from the recent events we have held, we're in close proximity to the residents, and that impacts our use. Any thoughts we had of running something different have quickly been gone, because we're just simply too close to the residents for live music events on a Friday and Saturday night, and that's not what we're there for. We're a football club.
I know from my experience of trying to organise with drivers, delivery drivers, to come outside school hours, it works for a few weeks and then they change drivers, and there's all sorts of reasons why it doesn't always happen.
But I think anything that could improve the safety is helpful. You know, if there's an intention to do it,
Yeah.
then that's
Can I suggest that the next sit on the agenda is for you to make a statement? So at this stage, it's questions from the members, please. Okay, thank you. You want to ask a question?
Yeah, just one final question, the applicant there. Roughly what's your capacity of the car park with the new extension on it?
80 spaces.
80 spaces, right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so any more questions? Not at all?
I suppose even if if the school hours were amended from 2 to 4, because preschool is as early as 2:30, that would still leave you with the problem that you've stated in your letters, the extended hours in the evening, Monday to Thursday. And that seems to be the main issue with yourselves. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I think, yes, the weekday is a problem because of the workers and school children largely. I think the actual, just adding to the issues on that access road, which we've discussed, that's of significant concern. And I think just generally the noise and rowdiness of the later hours for licensing, you know, it just makes it quite uncomfortable for the community. And I think we are concerned about the hazards of the cars going backwards and forwards, because it's great having a better car park. That will ease the issues actually around the clubhouse, but there's still all those cars coming up and down the lane, presumably at a similar time. And it's a single track lane, basically, with one passing space. It's not wide enough for 2 cars and pedestrians as well.
Can I just add to that a little bit? Can you imagine 80 cars leaving down a one-way track at midnight? Because that's what we're talking about. And all the associated noise.
Okay, thank you. I think no more questions on the table. Okay, thank you. The relevant persons are now asked to make their opening statement, and produce witnesses. You've probably said most of it, but
Could you just give me a minute just to have a quick look
Sure,
at
yeah,
the
okay.
people that we're representing, because John got taken off. Just let me just skim and see if there's anything we haven't added. I suppose the thing for us is we're not opposed to the clubhouse. We're not opposed to this being successful. It's a good thing. But it would be helpful if we had things like, and we can do things like, it's a schedule of events that are publicised, you know, so that we know in advance what's happening if there are events, and that we've got an idea, an understanding of what's likely to, if you like, come at us from the clubhouse, which, you know, that would be good. Sorry? Yeah, no. Now, in terms of some of the issues we've talked about, that there is no traffic calming down that Cemetery Lane. And is it possible to look at that? I guess that's a wider group than this, but I think with increased traffic, if this is accepted, then, and there is going to be increased traffic anyway, that's quite a key concern for us, the road safety. There's no lighting down there, you know, so again, vehicles leaving at night, they obviously have headlights, they'll be lit, but it is a very, very narrow, unlit, footpathless lane. So, what we don't know with the parking is whether the car park will solve the problems that we're currently seeing of people parking in the nearby close to use it as a cut through, which is okay if they leave access to our drives, but there's been a few, you know, antisocial parkings that we've had, and we wouldn't like to see that increase either. Yeah. So I'm just checking through lots of people's submissions because I know what I've said, but I think it's quite helpful. Paul's recognised that having run some events, that it's perhaps not large enough to host some of the events that we're fearful that the licence allows to happen. You know, so we went up there to have a look and just see what was happening. It's a lot smaller than we expected inside. So in terms of music events or, you know, big social events, we're not really certain how that works without windows open, doors open, you know, and people standing outside, perhaps taking their drinks outside, and, you know, the general increased noise that will cause. So I think for us, you know, a few posters saying, please respect your neighbours when you leave. Yes, it's helpful, but it doesn't necessarily work. And we're in the Snicket very close by and the houses close by. So we are concerned that the increase in the licensing hours will cause us some issues, particularly during weekdays where people need their rest. Even on a summer evening, sitting in the garden in a peaceful environment like we have now, you know, that could be potentially taken away. So I think it's good to hear that there's good intentions, but the licence allows a much wider implementation.
Could I mention that our neighbour that's just gone in hospital today was also the same neighbour was kept awake the other night by the bingo calling. I realise that that might be addressed now, but is that too late? Other things could happen as well. And it is because of the proximity. We are very close.
I think it's fair to say that the subcommittee will make a decision today, but if in the future, at any stage, situation alters and you're not happy, you can always come back, put an application in to have the situation heard. It's not just closed forever, it's just how it is today, you know. Thank you.
Just to clarify, although it's largely irrelevant, I mentioned before we'd had a presentation, a race night and a quiz night, not also had a bingo event. I think it was the race night or the quiz night. and you know, I think in terms of so I think that yes, we'd only had that, and I'd forgotten the other point I made. I can pick that up in the summing up as necessary.
Sorry, thank you very much. I think you can see that summing up is part of the next thing. I think we've probably summed up everything, but if you haven't anything else you have to say,
Tells Jen to the relevant persons,
okay?
and also whether the applicant has any questions as well.
Questions for the relevant persons? Okay. The applicant, any questions?
Now, I just remember the point I was going to make, which was that we did the quiz night and race night, and regrettably, which we hadn't anticipated due to the heat, we had to open the doors and windows, and I think that contributed to the problem. And that obviously we learn from that, and we've already had the discussions around the time of year within which we do any late night events. And clearly, the winter will be our aim. A quiz night and a race night doesn't have to be in summer; it's an indoor event, and we recognise that winter is better for such events if we were to hold any in the future. And then again, we apologise that residents were impacted as a result of that. But I think they kept trying to close the doors, and then it just got too hot and they opened them. And I think that was the point I made. Now, the only other point I would make in summing up is I think in terms of the conditions, which are fine, we have implemented, I think, pretty much all of them. So we do have CCTV now operating and working in the intruder alarm, fire safety, all those things that are probably relevant. Again, taking active measures to do. But likewise, some of the communication, I was particularly disappointed that the presentation, which I actually attended and left at around 8 PM, went on longer. And then I think them departing the venue then created some noise, particularly disappointed around that. And I think that's certainly a message which we can give within the club, because the facility is mainly used by people within the club. As you say, it's not just about signs, but it's being clear to people like that about our role as a respectful neighbour, and that if you depart in the venue and walking home, you do so quietly. And I think the quiz night and race night was unfortunate due to the sun. That was a disappointing event, and we will pick that up as part of the with our club colleagues.
Right. So we've done the main part of the agenda. Anything further to say on summing up from the relevant persons?
I think just to go back a little bit, back on what's just been mentioned, it's all well and good saying now that you recognise that there's been a noise, but in another year, 2 years, 3 years, why do you need an extension during the week in summer? Why does it have to be like that? Why does it have to involve booze and noise? There's no football played in summer. Sorry, 3 friendlies, I think you mentioned.
Thank you. Nothing further to say. Made our points. Yeah, okay. So,
The applicant has the final say, Chairman, if he wishes.
okay, so we're coming down to that. Yes, we are. So do you have anything else to say?
I've nothing to add, Chairman. I think we've covered
Okay,
all the
thank you.
points. Thank you.
So we go to policy advice from the licensing officer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of pieces for you today. Mention was made by the applicant of a willingness to withdraw the application for live and recorded music. It's just to remind members that the Deregulation Act will still have effect. So therefore, if an alcohol licence is in force, then live and recorded music with an audience of under 500 is deregulated anyway between the hours of 8 and 11 each day. So therefore, it would not be a licensable activity. However, it could still go ahead without being formed part of the licence under the Deregulation Act. Mention was also made around Cemetery Lane. It was just to direct members to section 4.22 of your report, which does talk about the limitation of adding conditions and regulations around a licence. That's something that's not in the direct control of the licence holder. It's only something within the immediate vicinity and control of the licence holder that can be considered. Anything beyond that is deemed the personal responsibility of the individuals themselves. And lastly, Chair, if you are minded to grant the variation application today, that you consider the amended conditions by the licensing authority, that would ensure anything added to the licence was enforceable. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. The legal advice from the legal advisor, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The statutory guidance in relation to license. Sorry, Chair. The licensing policy and national guidance is set out quite detailed within the report. Again, I would just draw your attention to paragraph 4.3, which talks about the imposition of licence conditions and what they must adhere to. Obviously, each application must be considered on its own merits and in accordance with the licensing authority's statement of licensing policy, and conditions attached to licenses and certificates must be tailored to the individual type, location and characteristics of the premises and events concerned. And this is essential to avoid the imposition of disproportionate and overly burdensome conditions on premises where there is no need for such conditions. Licensing authorities are best placed to deal with what actions are appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives in their areas, and all licensing determinations should be considered on a case-by-case basis, and the authority's determination should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and proportionate to what it is intended to achieve. The licensing authority may impose may not impose any conditions unless its discretion has been engaged following receipt of relevant representations and it is satisfied as a result of the hearing that it is appropriate to impose conditions to promote one or more of the 4 licensing objectives. Obviously, public nuisance is dealt with in paragraphs 4.18 onwards in the report. But just a reminder that all conditions, those relating to noise nuisance, may be appropriate in certain circumstances where provisions in other legislation adequately protect those living in the area of the premises. And where applications have given rise to representations, any appropriate conditions should normally focus on the most sensitive periods. For example, the most sensitive period for people being disturbed by unreasonably loud music is at night and into the early morning, when residents in adjacent properties may be attempting to go to sleep or are sleeping. And this is why there is still a need for a licence for performances of live music between 2300 hours and 8 AM. Obviously, just a reminder in relation to public nuisance as well, the guidance makes clear that beyond the immediate area surrounding the premises, that these are matters for the personal responsibility of individuals under the law, and an individual who engages in antisocial behaviour is accountable in their own right.
Thank you very much. We now reach the part of the agenda where we go into private deliberations. So can we ask you to vacate for a while? If you have to go on somewhere, we'll write to you anyway, but you can come back when we've